Now we are talking about other job site hazards. And first on that list is going to be lead paint. So lead was banned in 1978, but it was used widely. And so you might come across it when you are demoing old buildings or things like that. But lead as an element is indestructible. So you don't want to ingest it, which that can happen when you are demolishing buildings. The waste, once you've removed the lead or whatever it is, the paint or whatever, it's considered hazardous waste. So you need to treat it very carefully. Asbestos is another hazardous material. It was banned in the 1970s, but it was widely used. And prolonged exposure can cause lung cancer or cancer called mesothelioma. And that can take up to 20 years to develop. And it's found in old insulation, floor tiles, pipe insulation, drywall compounds, and some roofing materials. So it takes special training to remove it, to alter it, or repair it, to clean it up. So you have to usually call and hire a company that is trained to remove it and to dispose of it. Silica is found, it's a mineral found in concrete, and the dust of concrete is what is dangerous because you can ingest the silica, and prolonged exposure can cause lung cancer or silicosis, which is an incurable, sometimes fatal lung disease. Bloodborne pathogens are another job site hazard. They are spread through the contact of blood and carry things like HIV and hepatitis B and C. So you need to wear proper PPE. You need to wear gloves and wash with soap and water. Notify your supervisor if you have come in contact with any blood. Chemical splashes are another job site hazard, and if you have a chemical splash on you, you need to remove the clothing that was had the chemicals on it, and you need to rinse for 15 minutes. And also, your best line of defense for this is going to be having the proper PPE on ahead of time. Proximity work is work that is near a hazard but not directly in contact with a hazard, and special precaution is needed. Also, working around pressurized and high temperature systems could cause burns, and if something's damaged, it could spray hot fluids or steam. And so extra precaution is needed, barricades, and making sure that workers don't come in contact with those hazards. Heat stress is when your body cannot cool itself fast enough, and that can be caused by many things, and abnormally hot air, high humidity, and extreme heavy exertion. So you're working really hard out in the heat. And those could lead to things like heat cramps, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke. So you need to be very aware of the signs of the heat stress, and you need to prevent some of those further heat-related issues like heat cramps, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke. You need to drink lots of water, avoid alcohol or caffeine, don't overexert yourself, work in the cool part of the day if you can, and wear lightweight, light-colored clothing, and take frequent breaks and rest in the shade if at all possible. A heat cramp is having muscle pain or muscle spasm caused by heavy exertion. It's also caused by a loss of water and electrolytes from heavy sweating. The symptoms may be painful muscle spasms, pale, sweaty skin, normal body temperature, abnormal pain, and feeling nauseated. So you need to sit down, drink half glass of water every 15 minutes, and gently stretch and try to massage that cramped area to try to loosen up and relax those muscles. Heat exhaustion occurs when you are in a warm, humid environment, and when you're sweating, that sweat's not evaporating sufficiently to help cool you down. So the symptoms could be cool, pale, moist skin, heavy sweating, headache, feeling sick to your stomach, and even vomiting, dizziness, fainting, So you need to be aware of those things so you can remove yourself from the environment and make sure you're hydrated and you can cool back down. Of all the heat stress related conditions that you could encounter, the heat stroke is the most severe and it's life-threatening. It's the most serious. The body's temperature control system that regulates how much you should sweat to help cool your body down, it shuts down and stops working. So your temperature can rise too high and it can cause brain damage or death. And you must cool yourself quickly. If you're outside working in the extreme cold for a prolonged period of time, you could get frostbite. And frostbite is where the skin and the tissue directly under the skin start to freeze and that tissue will die. So you need to warm that tissue back up, and you have to be very careful. You're not supposed to rub it. You just need to get your gloves on, blow on your hands, and get into a warmer environment. Hypothermia is another danger in working out in the cold. It doesn't have to be below freezing to suffer from hypothermia. Some symptoms of hypothermia, which hypothermia is having your body's temperature drop to a dangerously low level. Some symptoms of that might be uncontrolled shivering, slurred speech, clumsy movements, fatigue, and confused behavior. Other job site hazards you might encounter might be when you are welding or cutting. The oxygen and the acetylene are very explosive gases, and they need to be carefully stored and transported very carefully. And you have proper PPE when you're working around welding and you're working around metal and cutting. Don't look, when somebody's welding, don't look right where that weld is. It's very bright. You can flash burn your eyes. It's burning your eyes. That's not good. The hoses and regulators when we're welding. The fuel or the gas hose is usually red and the oxygen hose is green. So when you'll need to inspect these hoses and look for charred sections close to the torch caused by flashback. So it's important to kind of inspect all these things before each use. Another danger is going to be confined spaces. Confined space would be defined as something, you could still work in that area, but it's small, but has a limited entry and exit out of it. So those are, that's in case there's something that happens, it might be difficult to get out of there. And also in a confined space, a hazardous atmosphere may occur from, if you are welding in a confined space, maybe a respirator or something like that would be needed. Construction ergonomics. That's going to be the study of our body's movement when we're doing construction. One of the most basic things is when you're lifting, you want to lift with your legs, keep your back straight, and keep the load, whatever it is you're lifting up, close to your body. As you're picking it up, don't turn or twist. You might need to see if you need to use a mechanical, like a jack or maybe a forklift or something. Maybe get assistance. So these are all things we don't want to get injured when we are moving things around on the job site. Another on-job site hazard is going to be fire. And one thing we want to do is we want to prevent fire. So to prevent fire, we want to keep our fuel, our heat, and our oxygen not at the same place at the same time. Try to keep them apart from each other. Don't smoke. And we want to keep combustibles in approved containers. If you have an oily rag, they go in approved containers. Usually that is a self-closing container that has a self-closing lid. And also your combustibles are going to be, could be a liquid, it could be gas, it could be paper, wood, or cloth. Those are combustible things. So if you do have a fire, you need to have fire extinguishers around. You need to know where they're at, and you need to know what types they are. Okay, we have different types of fires, and you need to make sure ahead of time that those fire extinguishers are fully charged.